poke bowl today, which is a traditionally Hawaiian dish, and poke means to slice or cut. Traditionally, it's served with raw fish, and it's usually salmon or tuna that has been cut and marinated. And it's served with a combination of vegetables, which again have been either sliced or cut and pickled in a variety of ways. So that's what we're going to do for you today. It's really beautiful, and let's hope you enjoy. We're going to start by making the marinade for the fish. And in this mortar, I've got some garlic, ginger, and some chili. And I'm going to add some soy sauce. And I'm going to add a little drop of toasted sesame seed oil. And then I'm going to crush it up and hopefully make a paste out of it. Takes a few minutes, so be patient. Okay, so if you haven't got a mortar and pestle, you can do this in a liquidizer, or you can just chop it up really finely, as fine as you can, and then add the sesame seed oil and the soy sauce to the bowl afterwards. It takes a little while, so try and be as patient as you can. Okay, so the marinade is just about ready, and it's a really good time to taste it. And what you're looking for is a combination of the heat from the chili and the salt from the soy. You really want to balance it out a little bit, so a spoonful of sugar, probably about a teaspoon, would be a really good idea, and I'm just going to add a teaspoon to this now. Give it a final mix together. And there we go, we're ready. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is cut this salmon up into little cubes, ready for the marinade. Okay, so now I'm going to pour the marinade over the fish and mix it together really thoroughly. Make sure that it's all coated, and then when it's done that, we're going to put it in the fridge for a couple of hours. Okay, I should have said as well, when you're making the marinade, the measures are really approximate, so use your judgment when you're putting all of your ingredients together. What you're looking for, as I said before, was a combination of heat, sweetness, and a bit of saltiness. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to shred this cabbage, and we're going to make a pickle with it. It's going to add a really beautiful color. It's also going to add some great texture to it as well. I think you could probably almost associate it with sauerkraut, because once we've shredded it up, we're going to add a vinegary, sweet pickle to this and leave it so that it absorbs all the flavor. So take your time and shred the cabbage, and try and keep it as thin as you possibly can. But mind your fingers. And if it means that you have to leave a little bit unchopped, don't be afraid to do that. I'm just going to cut that across so that the pieces are not too long. And then it's ready for pickling. Okay, so I'm going to make the pickling juice for the cabbage. And what I'm going to do is pour about 3 tablespoons of Chinese cooking wine into a bowl. And then I'm going to add some vinegar. You can use any vinegar you want. I've actually got some malt vinegar here, so that's what I'm adding. But you can add some white wine vinegar, you can add apple cider vinegar, whatever you want. So I'm adding a spoonful of vinegar, and I'm going to add a tablespoonful of sugar and mix it all together as much as you can until the sugar is dissolved. And you don't have to be too meticulous about it. Don't worry if all the sugar hasn't dissolved. It will disperse throughout the pickle anyway, so it'll be fine. Okay, so we're ready to put it all into the bowl. In goes the cabbage. In goes the pickling juice. and the sugar that hasn't dissolved even. Give it a good stir. Try and make sure everything is coated. And at this point, you can add a little bit of salt to this as well. And then once it's all mixed together, if you've got some cling film, cover it, but if not, just put it in the fridge. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to make now is the cucumber pickle. I can't begin to tell you how much we love this in our family, and actually it's eaten a lot throughout the Caribbean. It's really, really simple. What I'm going to do, take off the skin. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this cucumber into really thin slices. You cut it as thin as you can. And in fact, it doesn't even have to be slices. You can cut it into little squares, little chunks. As I was saying, in our family, we actually love this, and it's eaten a lot throughout the Caribbean. You serve it with breakfasts. You can have it really with saltfish. I mean, it tastes amazing with fried saltfish. The recipe is always the same. Okay, so just use the back of the knife and try and press down the garlic. And just keep going backwards and forwards over the garlic until you get a paste. It really doesn't take long. And it's much nicer if you do this rather than buying a shop bought paste. And then we're going to add some oil to this. Not too much, and don't use an oil that's too heavy either, because we don't really want to taste the oil. So what I've got here is some sunflower oil, some lemon juice in there. Okay, give it a stir, but again, don't be too bothered about everything blending together completely, because we're going to put it in the cucumbers and mix it all together anyway. Okay, so now pour the pickle over the cucumber and simply give it a stir. So the next thing we're going to do is make some sushi rice. Okay, I've got a couple of sheets here and I've nearly finished cutting it. I'm simply going to cut it one way and then I'm going to cut it the other way. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just simply add the seaweed to the rice, and then I'm going to pour about 1.5 tablespoons of MIRIN seasoning over the top. I'm going to try and mix it together really well. Okay, so the MIRIN seasoning is added a lot to sushi rice, and it just brings a slight sweetness to it, which again balances really well with the saltiness of this seaweed. Now I'm going to prepare the broccoli. I'm going to do this really simply. There's so much flavour in all of the other dishes that you really don't need to do this with any fuss. I'm simply going to steam this in some water with some soy sauce. And in my family, we eat absolutely everything of the broccoli, stalks and all. So I'm just going to chop those up a little bit. And then I'm going to try where I can to pull off the heads of the broccoli, maybe cut them in half if they're a bit big. Leave them like that. Next is the papaya. This is going to be the last thing that we add when we put everything together in the bowl. And I've actually chosen papaya because it's full of nutritional value. It's full of vitamin A and C, and it helps to ease inflammation and also aids digestion. And it's really, really good when combined with savoury foods. An alternative to papaya is mango or perhaps even melon, if that's your preference. I'm going to finely chop a few slices of chilli to add to the papaya. We don't want much, just enough to enhance the flavour and lift it a little bit. And just a few drops of lime. Okay, so now I'm going to assemble this. And done right, this can be a really attractive dish. I only hope I'm going to be able to replicate that. So rice goes first at the bottom. And now the cabbage. And try to get some of the pickling juice as well. Right, some cucumbers next. Spread that out a little bit. I'm going to add some broccoli and the pak choi. Now I'm going to add the fish. So add a nice scoop of that in the middle. And the marinade, don't forget that. And I'm adding some sugar snap peas. These are raw because they're really best for this kind of dish because of the crunchy texture. And lastly, I'm going to add some of the papaya. And I shall put this over here, over the broccoli and the cucumber.